What's quack-a-lackin'? Today we are in the town of Ivanhoe, Minnesota. I have been to a lot of towns in my life that I have described to people as being a storybook town. And Ivanhoe is literally the storybook town, and I can't wait to tell you the story behind that. But more importantly, I have discovered a chapter in this town's history about a rivalry that was so deep and intense that it culminated in the town of Ivanhoe conducting a midnight raid on the nearby town of Lake Benton. And I certainly can't wait to tell you all about that. But first, let's just get a quick look around. Let's go. Ivanhoe, Minnesota. Let's get it. This is downtown Ivanhoe, Minnesota. This town was first incorporated in 1900, which gives it the distinction of being the newest and youngest town that we've ever been to on the channel. It also has the distinction of being the smallest town that we've been to on the channel so far. The latest census data puts the population of Ivanhoe at about 550, but more recent estimates put it up around the 620 mark. So Ivanhoe's had a little bit of growth in the last few years. And I find this building right here to be incredibly interesting. I don't know a lot about it other than what is engraved on the building, and that is that it was constructed in 1929 as the Ivanhoe Co-op Creamery. So if you can imagine, during the Great Depression, there were people working inside this building making ice cream and coffee creamers and things of that nature. And it was probably considered to be a very prestigious job that you were lucky to have. And hopefully it came with some fringe benefits, maybe getting a little bit of free ice cream to take home. Ivanhoe also has the distinction of being the hometown of the First Lady of the state of Minnesota. Gwen Walz, the wife of Governor Tim Walz, grew up here in Ivanhoe. But there are a couple of interesting things that I want to point out and show you real quick and tell you a little bit about the history of this town. I don't really know anything about this building other than that it says Burke on the side of the building, but that naming plate seems to have been added at some point later on. I'm not sure if that was the original name, but since it's the only naming convention added to the building, we're going to call this the Burke Building. And one interesting thing you will notice about the buildings in downtown Ivanhoe is that they are predominantly a brick construction. The other downtown areas that we've seen on the channel so far have been buildings constructed primarily of quartzite. So Ivanhoe is a little bit different in that respect. All of the buildings here are made out of brick. I just wanted to grab a quick shot of the water tower here in Ivanhoe. These types of water towers are something that you really never see if you live in an urban area, a more metropolitan area. They don't really use those types of water towers anymore, so it's something that always reminds me of small town middle America, and I feel like it's something I should capture once in a while here on the channel. Anyway, back to the naming of the town of Ivanhoe. Ivanhoe is named after the book Ivanhoe, which is a very classic piece of American literature from 1819. It takes place during the time of Richard the Lionheart, and the town of Ivanhoe really embraces this naming. You will see all throughout town there are banners on the side of the street featuring a knight in full regalia with a jousting pole riding on a horse. And the streets in town are all named after characters from the book Ivanhoe. So that's why the town of Ivanhoe is known as the Storybook Town, because it is named after this story, and it really embraces the identity of that book. And it's a good identity to embrace because the book Ivanhoe takes place in England during the time of Richard the Lionheart. And during the 17th century, Richard the Lionheart had taken his army on the Crusades, and while he was away, the Normans had invaded the Saxon territory and took over large swaths of it and really oppressed the Saxon people. And so this is a story that took place in that time, and it follows the life of a man named Wilfred Ivanhoe, who was a disinherited knight, which is a nice way of saying that he had lost his lands to the Normans. And The book Ivanhoe is a story of knighthood and chivalry and really beautiful things. But more than that, it is a story of a really intense rivalry between two different peoples inhabiting the same area. But that rivalry ultimately culminated into the unification of these rivals to create the unified England that we see today as the United Kingdom. And it's somewhat ironic that this town should be named after that book, given that Ivanhoe itself would find its way into a very intense rivalry that eventually culminated into the unification of Lincoln County, Minnesota. The sign says, "Welcome to our garden," so you better believe I'm going to bring you on in and give you a look. This is a very cute little community garden space that they have right in the middle of downtown Ivanhoe. If you've been on the channel for a while, since the very early days, you might be wondering what happened to my community garden. Don't ask. We're just not going to talk about that. Look at all these tomatoes. So many, so ripe, so delicious. So they've got a very cute little community garden space right here in the middle of downtown Ivanhoe. But now we're going to take a walk just a few blocks through a residential neighborhood to make our way up to the very historic Lincoln County Courthouse so we can get this story underway in reference to the rivalry between Ivanhoe and Lake Benton, which culminated in a midnight raid on the town of Lake Benton. That's so amazing. Who would have thought that these things have happened, but they certainly did, and I'm going to tell you all about it. This is the Saints Peter and Paul Catholic Church. It was constructed for the people of Ivanhoe in 1950, but that's getting a little ahead of where we need to be at. We need to back things up about a half a century to 1901. That was the year that there was a county-wide public vote held to determine once and for all whether the county seat should remain in Lake Benton or be transferred to the center of the county and be given to Ivanhoe. And the people of Lincoln County voted overwhelmingly that the county seat should indeed be in the center of the county, and the vote awarded things to Ivanhoe. But it wasn't that clear-cut because Lake Benton wasn't going to give up their position that easily, and they began making allegations of irregularities in the vote and voter fraud, and that the vote just can't be trusted. Now, if all that sounds familiar, I'm right there with you. I am. But that was the battle that was beginning to take shape. And Lake Benton had one very important thing on their side, and that was a vault that contained all of the county records. It had the maps, the land deeds, the legal documents, the financial records. They had everything to support the civic affairs of the county, and they were holding on to these records for dear life as they engaged in a series of legal contests within the courts to dispute the results of the election in an attempt to hold on to their position as the county seat in Lincoln County. And this was something that drug on for far longer than the people of Ivanhoe felt that it should. As the old adage goes, possession is 9/10 of the law, and being in possession of these records was a key benefit to the people of Lake Benton, and it allowed them to tie this thing up in court for years. The courts bogged it down in red tape and described the situation as a legal gray area. I'm not sure how the will of the people was ever considered to be a legal gray area, but that was the position of the courts at the time. And after a few years of this, the people of Ivanhoe grew tired of waiting for the courts to decide what the people had already decided years previous, and so they decided to take matters into their own hands. So what the people of Ivanhoe decided to do was to come into the town of Lake Benton under the cover of darkness in what is today known as the Midnight Raid. And they came into town with a plan, and this plan had 5 objectives. First objective, infiltrate the temporary courthouse in Ivanhoe. There was a temporary courthouse with a records room where all of the county records were kept, and so the first objective was to simply infiltrate the temporary courthouse. Second objective, bypass any resistance. Bypass any resistance. And from all historical accounts, there was no resistance to be bypassed. Ivanhoe caught the people of Lake Benton completely off guard and by surprise, so they were able to infiltrate the courthouse without encountering any resistance. Third objective, secure all of the heavy books, ledgers, legal documents, and maps. Secure all of these items and then move on to the fourth objective. Load these items onto horse-drawn wagons and sleighs so that we can get to the fifth and final objective of returning these items to the town of Ivanhoe before the people of Lake Benton woke up to find out what had gone on. And that's exactly what Ivanhoe did. And they were incredibly successful in that, which resulted in them having both the vote of the people as well as the county records, which secured for them for all time the position of being the county seat of Lincoln County, resulting in the construction of this incredibly beautiful limestone courthouse behind me. It's certainly the crown jewel of architecture in Ivanhoe. So let me show you a quick look at this courthouse, which is ultimately the trophy of this midnight raid. This is the historic Lincoln County Courthouse. It began construction in 1918, 14 years after the midnight raid on Lake Benton, and it was completed in 1919. It is made predominantly of bluff Kasota limestone, but the base is constructed of Kettle River sandstone. This building is constructed in a classical revival style architecture. A lot of people refer to this as neoclassical, and it clearly draws heavy influence from both Greece and Rome. And this is a style of architecture that emerged very strongly during the early 20th century. The top of the pediment on this courthouse is adorned with a sculpture of an eagle that looks incredibly fierce, and it is really fitting, being that this building is a sort of a monumental trophy to the victory of the war for who became county seat in Lincoln County, Minnesota. Just to clarify, I refer to that courthouse as the crown jewel because that's how history records it. But if you ask me, the real crown jewel are these farms behind me. Get a look at these fields. The people of Lake Benton did resist for a time, but they eventually conceded that Ivanhoe had won the county seat position and that they rightfully deserved it. And this began a new era in Lincoln County where these two rivals sort of joined forces and embraced each other and built a strong agricultural footprint, not for either one of the individual communities, but for Lincoln County as a whole. So that rivalry eventually ended in the unification of Lincoln County, very much in the same way that the story of Ivanhoe in classic literature resulted in the unification of England to form a united kingdom. This place formed a united Lincoln County. So that about wraps up today's little adventure in Ivanhoe, Minnesota. I always have an incredible time every time I come to Lincoln County. There's just something about this place that feels like home, and I love coming here. And there are still 3 towns left to explore in Lincoln County, so we will definitely be back again. And I feel like I'm going to be back in Ivanhoe itself again. So until then, if you enjoyed today's video, enjoyed the scenery, learned anything, or just had a good time exploring this town with me, please do me a huge favor and tap the subscribe button down below, or give the video a thumbs up. Neither one of these things cost you anything at all, and they do a lot to help give the video a little bit of a push in the algorithm, help it get seen by more people. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Quackers out.